Evening, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order the February 28th, 2017 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Okay, we are to our first order of business, which is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Ashby.
I would like to add business item 7G. I would like to add a discussion regarding the Code City public hearing that we're holding tonight and the next steps.
Second that.
And a second to add business item 7G, which would be a discussion of next steps for the Code City. And I have a motion and a second. Further discussion of adding that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we've added that agenda item. Any other amendments or discussion on the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Clausen to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are to item number 3, citizens' comment. We do have a public hearing tonight, so if you're here to talk on that, I've got a sign-up sheet and we'll take comment on that matter later in the agenda. But any other items on the agenda, please, yes, Ms. Whittleton.
Good evening. I wanted to speak to the council retreat and just request it would be very helpful if that could be recorded. I know last time it was really hard to follow. You know, the sheet that we got was real brief and sketchy, so we really didn't get a good overview of the retreat. So thank you if you would please make that more available to us. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments, citizens' comments for items on the agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Motion to approve?
Here I move to approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Seconded.
Motion and a second by Councilmember Lucarelli to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We are to our presentations, and the first one this evening is a proclamation on Brain Injury Awareness Month. And I will read this into the record. Whereas each year, more Americans will experience brain injury than HIV or AIDS, breast cancer, multiple sclerosis, and spinal cord injury combined. Despite incident rates, brain injury remains largely unseen by the American populations and is frequently referred to as the silent epidemic. And whereas many people recover from their injuries, but each year an estimated 26,000 people in the state of Washington sustain a traumatic brain injury resulting in permanent disability, and whereas traumatic brain injury costs our nation a staggering $56.3 billion a year, and whereas prevention is the only cure known, whereas the mission of the Brain Injury Association of America is to create a better future through brain injury prevention, research, education, and advocacy. And whereas in order to carry out this mission, the BIAA provides information on topics such as bike safety, falls, sports and recreation, violence, and transportation safety, and recommendations on how to prevent injuries from occurring, and participates in national coalitions with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Health Resources and Services Administration, the Defense Brain and Spinal Cord Injury Program, and the Brain Injury Association of Washington. Now therefore, I, Robert Putansu, Mayor of the City of Port Orchard, designate March as National Brain Injury Awareness Month. In this day, in the City of Port Orchard, I call upon all employees and citizens of the City of Port Orchard to observe this month with appropriate recognition. Present this to you.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Griffin, and first of all, I want to say thank you for having me come back here every year for doing brain injury awareness. March is National Brain Injury Awareness Month, which shines a light on those who have experienced brain injuries and those who are diligently working to better prevent and treat TBI, traumatic brain injury. 30% of soldiers admitted to Walter Reed Medical Center have been diagnosed as having a traumatic brain injury. After a brain injury, getting our confidence back is really hard. Our confidence takes a huge hit. Our skills and abilities have been diminished. The author of this book, Learning to Live with Ourselves After a Brain Injury, Jeff Siebel, he's also been one that has really helped us out a lot by saying, my brain injury is not the boss of me. He has come up with remembering an old TV commercial about toothpaste. So he comes up with toothpaste confidence. These two gentlemen were going to be going skiing down like Death Hill or whatever, and they all looked at each other and they said, oh, well, don't worry about it. We have toothpaste confidence. And now he kind of said to himself, what does toothpaste have to do with this? But anytime we can say confidence and we can mean it, it gives us something, because that confidence and belief come from within and is not granted to us, but we can develop both in ourselves. And talking about confidence, my first skull fracture came when I was 3 weeks old, so I grew up knowing no other way of life. But I was really blessed that my parents got me into the trades or into sewing and that. And I've been doing it since I've been like a little grasshopper or whatever. But anyways, the Heroes quilting really has helped me. I have never finished a quilt, and I did one this year, entered it in Kitsap County Fairgrounds, took second place. And because I knew how to sew, I had to get it in the last day, so I just watched the videos on how to put the binding and everything on, and I did it. And I would like to show you guys.
Wonderful. That's incredible.
I want to tie this in with a saying that I have found several years ago. It's called Advice from the Ocean. Be sure of yourself, come out of your shell, take time to relax and coast, avoid peer pressure, see life's beauty, don't get tied down, and make waves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully when you look at this, you will realize that people who suffered a brain injury have to believe in themselves. And what you guys are doing is helping us, getting our voice and hearing my story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming and sharing your story this evening. Next on our agenda this evening is Kathleen Wilson. And if you don't know Kathleen, she is the head librarian downtown Port Orchard at our local library branch. She's a member of our planning commission. She's the president of our local Downtown Merchants Association. And she's also a longstanding member of the board, at the Chamber Board. She's also a Rotarian. I don't know what Kathleen isn't involved in, but I was recently at the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, and Kathleen was giving a presentation on this community assessment that you have before us, and she was giving a PowerPoint presentation, and I thought it was really interesting information, and I thought it would be very appropriate to share it with us tonight. So with that, Kathleen.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to share with you our community assessment, our stories that we worked on at the library system over the past year, collecting data on the entirety of Kitsap County, and then going out and talking to over 60 groups and individuals about what their aspirations were for their community. What kind of community do you want to live in? That's what we asked. Over the past year, Kitsap Regional Library has asked this question of dozens of groups and individuals around the county. We listened to your aspirations, your challenges, the changes you want to see in your community, and who you trust to help make them happen. If you find yourself wondering why the library would take this on, the answer is for you. Our mission is to inspire you to dream more, learn more, do more, and be more. When we know what you care about, we'll provide the tools you need: books, classes, databases, one-on-one help from a librarian, and more to bring your own ideas to life. Whatever your dreams are, the library is uniquely positioned to help make them a reality. Do you want better sidewalks or better bus service in your neighborhood? Librarians don't normally pour concrete, but you'll be surprised that librarians can be uniquely positioned to help you figure out how to have your voice heard on local decisions. So I have a PowerPoint here that we put together. First of all, I want to thank everybody. We had so many members of our community help with this. It was a year-long project. There was extensive data analysis and then conversations with many community organizations all over the county. We had an open conversation at the Port Orchard Library where we had many members of the community come in and share their community aspirations. It was really interesting. And now we're sharing our information that we learned back out. So in South Kitsap, we heard aspirations for an inclusive, small community that supports local businesses, green spaces, and things to do with great public transportation. There were concerns about empty storefronts, lack of sidewalks, and frustrations with the prosperity of neighboring communities while South Kitsap continues to struggle. So what do we have in common? We learned this from our neighbors here in South Kitsap. We heard that South Kitsap residents want an inviting and united village with a small town feel that's a pedestrian-friendly destination with a pro-business environment. And this was a South Kitsap Rotarian. I want a pedestrian-friendly community with a great reputation that is portrayed positively by both social and traditional media. And this was something that we heard especially from South Kitsap residents, I think, was the portrayal in the media, being portrayed in a more positive light. So what do we have in common? And this is a word cloud here that kind of some of the common themes that came up over and over again: growth, sustainability, infrastructure, but sustainability, engagement, and connection. These were the shared, interconnected themes that were really woven throughout all of the groups that we talked to throughout the county. So we pulled it together, and this project was directed through ALA, and it's an ALA project that is being done in communities all over the country, but we're actually one of the first library systems to implement this project. And using what we had laid out for us, we were able to pull these three themes out. So what is connection? Connection really is a feeling of belonging. We want to feel connected to each other, our community, and really, especially, our neighborhoods. What does that mean? What does it mean to feel connected to your neighborhood? You want to feel safe. You want to have activities available for all ages, and transportation. And this wasn't just transportation, public bus transportation. This was actually walkability was a huge issue that came up everywhere in the county. I want to live in a small, tight-knit community where people say hi to those you know. It makes me feel welcome, not like an outsider, part of something. The concerns were that we heard local resources aren't consistently dedicated to supporting these connections. There's a lack of social services. In the south end of the county, we heard a lot about lack of mental health services that are available here in this part of the county. Lack of sidewalks, lack of streetlights. This was universal in our county, everywhere. This is what's keeping people from feeling connected to their neighbors. And then trusted information source, one place where people can go to get reliable information. Now that we're not reading the physical newspaper as much, it's harder to get that source, that trusted source. I will not walk because I do not feel safe, because there are no sidewalks and sometimes questionable people walking around. My family only has one car, so when my husband has duty, I'm pretty much stuck. That was a military spouse, I believe in Silverdale, but she could live anywhere. Identifying, building, and accessing opportunity is where we should focus, and focusing on robust local social services. So really building up those services that provide the connections in our communities. When people are disconnected from each other, they stay in their pockets and aren't able to break into new circles. It's harder to make and maintain friendships, to build a strong community, and to implement change. And this was the feeling of disconnection that was felt due to the lack of those social services, the lack of the sidewalks and transportation. And now with engagement, one person can make a difference. So with connection, we're really thinking about a hand out, meeting your neighbor. With engagement, it's a hand up. You're engaging in your community. You're offering to volunteer yourself. So diversity, this was something that we heard a lot. We need more diversity, more individuals engaged in civic and community activities. I want a community where people want to be involved. And we heard the concerns were that it's hard to get involved. And then when you're not involved, it's hard to trust. And there's a real passivity. And that, of course, that's not just here in Kitsap County, that's everywhere. But it's hard to take that first step. And again, it was clear, accessible information that was a concern. Civility, a lack of civility, that was in social media and mainstream media, and then a lack of diverse voices. There are lots of caring people at every meeting I attend, but it's the same people at every meeting. And, that's the way it goes. And there was a concern they want more people involved. So where should we focus here with engagement? With a visible impact, safe civil spaces, finding out, how can we find out what's happening? Where's that one source of information where you can know where to go to find out what's going on? And then the funding and infrastructure. We need a place where different voices can actually hear each other and people holding differing opinions can interact. And the last portion of my presentation is the sustainability. And this is really the three-legged stool of economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability. We want to live in an environmentally, economically, and socially thriving community. So this means thriving local businesses, educational options and opportunities that support those local businesses, and then preserving the natural resources with green spaces, walkable neighborhoods, and the ability to put down roots. And this was something that was really interesting that came up in one of our conversations that I had no idea about. In South Kitsap, 80% of all real estate transactions involve a VA loan. And that really speaks to the putting down roots in our community. If we have, such a transient population, how can we really convince people that may not be staying in our communities for more than 3 or 4 years that they need to be involved and make a difference? I have children and I want them to grow up in a good place. That was definitely a universal. And of course, in South Kitsap, we did hear a lot about the schools and our school district. And a concern with sustainability, development can be in tension with sustaining the character of our existing communities. A tension between all of the new families moving in, new buildings being built, and can we sustain the character, the unique character that we have in Kitsap County? So our concerns, is there enough being invested in our infrastructure? Are education opportunities broad enough to support job diversity? When we spoke to the Kitsap young professionals, there was a concern about the lack of diversity in our industries in the county, especially, and that was pretty countywide. Housing affordability, this is becoming more and more of an issue here, and then long-term residents. And a Suquamish tribal member was talking about the differences when he used to go fishing in the 80s to now. There are more problems with water quality and climate change. There are less fish and less diversity of wildlife. It's harder for people who fish now. They don't have as much opportunity. So where do we need to focus? We need to focus on the educational opportunities that support not only local business, but support diversity of industry. We need to develop the infrastructure to support the influx of new residents. We need to create green spaces, and we need to promote permanence in our residents. If people see Bremerton as a temporary residence, they will not invest their time and resources into building it up. If people see Bremerton as home, they are more willing to work to make it a better place. And that applies, of course, to Port Orchard, it applies to Paulsbo, it applies to Silverdale, it applies everywhere. And when we talked to the groups, we asked everybody, who do you trust to take action? And it wasn't we trust our city officials, it wasn't we trust, it was we trust each other. That's who we trust. We're a very self-reliant community. So a coalition of public, private, and nonprofit groups working together towards a common goal. This is an Indianola resident, and this was an interesting community conversation that I heard about. When they got these residents together at this beachside community in Indianola, a lot of them had never met each other. They were really disconnected. They were just in their own pockets. And they had the meeting at a kind of a community center, but one of the residents said, I'm glad you asked that question about how your neighbors feel about this issue, because I realized I don't usually talk to my neighbors about this, and now I will. And there was a real issue with problems happening on their beach, and they were feeling unsafe. They were feeling unsafe to walk on the beach. There was a big problem with litter, drug use. And so one of the residents said, when I see problems outside my window, I go out with my big dogs and take a walk. And another neighbor said, you do? Well, next time call me up, I'll join you. Gave her his phone number. And then another person said, well, you know what? We should all get together and clean the beach up. And then before the meeting was over, they had set a time for a potluck, and they'd all exchanged phone numbers. So it's just the fact of being able to get together and meet your neighbors, providing that opportunity can make a big difference. So we have these shared interconnected themes of connection, engagement, and sustainability. And we can't ever forget that this is a wonderful place to live. I feel blessed to live here. That was a Silverdale resident, but I mean, that was definitely countywide as well. So here at the library, we need to use what we've learned, taking this information and using it to help shape where we're going to go in the future, focusing our library services on encouraging connection, engagement, and sustainability. This is going to be a long process, but we'll do it in small steps. And this community assessment is going to be the library's North Star, shaping how we can best position ourselves to help our community. And just learning about all of the different factors that are the challenges that each community is facing, and the commonality was really incredible. So we want to continue this conversation. We're sharing this information back out right now, but conversation participants said, I see lots of progress being made. For example, this conversation is great. Nobody asked me my opinions on these topics before, and it was great just to have the opportunity to be heard. So we are deciding now what actions we should take and who else we need to talk with. I've handed out these, the packet. This little booklet goes into more detail about the data that we gathered, and in more detail about our 3 themes. And also, it lets you know that you can go to our website, krl.org, and we have a lot more data on our website for you. We had divided the county up into 7 regions, and each region, including the South Kitsap region, the data is available there on our website. So if you have a question, you can reach me at the library, krl.org, or there's the opportunity to give feedback on the website, right in the Our Stories website. And there's my contact information, so please feel free to contact me.
So, thank you, Kathleen. Do anybody have questions for Kathleen about her survey or the information she presented us here tonight? I think it's wonderful that you guys took the time to do this, myself. Fred?
Can you elaborate a little more? You used a phrase called local social services, and I think that was in with the connection theme.
Yes.
What was that referring to?
It was referring to like the mental health services, access to, I think it was everything from easy access to transportation, to services for our homeless population, to services for maybe underserved children in their respective school districts. So really, and as I said, in the South End, one of the things that we really heard was the difficulty to access mental health services. Just getting the transportation and timing of the buses and the ferries to access. Most of the services are in Silverdale or Bremerton. It's that kind of social service.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe Kitsap Mental Health just opened an office here in the last year on Mitchell. So
Yes.
it's
So that is great. So.
Other questions for Kathleen? Okay, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much for having
Greatly
me.
appreciated. We are on to our next business item, which is item 6, our public hearing. It's a public hearing on declaring the intent of the city council to adopt for the city of Port Orchard the classification of a non-charter code city to be governed by the provisions of Title 35A Revised Code of Washington. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So during the January 17th, 2017 work study session, the mayor first introduced the Code City discussion and reminded council and the city did budget for a potential ballot measure. Council and staff continued discussion on the Code City during the January 24th, February 14th, and the February 21st, 2017 council meetings. Although some members of the public were present during the meeting, the council requested that a public hearing be noticed and held at the last meeting in February so the public would have an additional opportunity to provide comment. Staff recommends the mayor open the public hearing.
Okay, this time we're going to open a public hearing on the subject matter of Code City. I have 3 people signed up, and then we'll call on anyone else in the public that would like to speak. And the first to sign up was Tim Mathis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having this public hearing. A lot of us, for whatever reason, life gets in the way of meetings and we don't attend them or we don't follow them as closely as we should. But I have been expecting that this same subject to come up this year. Of course, we all know we've already been around the merry-go-round on this one time, and it wasn't successful. Part of that reason was it was a dual request. There was 2 items. It was tied together with a city manager, and I believe that was its downfall. So I've had the opportunity to at least read a part of the Code City Handbook and some of the things involved in it. And I believe that adoption of the change of classification to non-charter Code City will be successful if, and it's a big if, you cause 3 things to happen, and it's all up to you guys. The first thing is that you, by resolution, vote to let voters decide this change at the next regular election in the fall. And the reason I say that is you have money in the budget to do that. You're already talking about what if the citizens get up a petition. This will nullify all of that. You'll go right straight to taking it to this, and that's up to you. You can do that. And that's pursuant to RCW 35A 02-060 and 070. The second thing that's up to you is I remind you that if you become a Code City, the people do not automatically have the right of initiative. It's not a given. However, the council, by resolution, can and should give the voters and the citizens the power of initiative and referendum, per RCW 35A 11080. And lastly, that you should start the process of dividing our city into wards, per RCW 35A 12180. Wards will provide the citizenry with more accountability and I think it will also increase voter participation in future elections. They'll feel more engaged. All 3 of these provisions are allowed in Code City, and I would believe that the citizens would be more apt to accept it if you included them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next signed up is Nick Whittleton.
Good evening. Code City, where is the need? What is it that cannot currently be done that needs to be addressed? This would be a prime opportunity for a town hall meeting to explain the changes, the effects, and the needs. 35A 01010 grants of municipal power to municipalities electing to be governed under the provisions of this title. Whether the grant is in specific terms or in general terms, shall be liberally construed in favor of the municipality. How does this help the citizens of the city? I can see that it helps the city government, but what about the people? Work study, some of the things that were brought up, annexation, easier annexation. We still don't know what the end cost of the Bethel Avenue and McCormick Woods annexations are going to be. We don't have that number. So to make it easier, just doesn't make sense. Pro tem appointments. If a city council person cannot fulfill their duties due to some excused absence, the council can appoint a council member pro tem. Again, what is it that helps the people of the city? Will we move to a planning agency in lieu of a planning commission? Will we move to lease our public utilities? Those are all stuff that's available. Will we do that? The only carrot out there for the citizens of the city as initiative and referendum. Currently, according to the information provided from the work study, 49 code cities and 10 first-class cities have adopted initiative and referendum. How many on the council would support that? We need to understand the reasons behind the change before we jump off the Code City Bridge like everybody else, just because they did. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Alyssa Whittleton signed up next.
Good evening again. I suppose I could just say that I echo the concerns there. I would like to have more discussion with the council to see where they stand on the issue of referendum, that's a hard one for me to say, and initiative. The plus side I can see is the RCW regarding, and that is, in case you haven't seen it, 35.80 that regards unfit dwellings, buildings, and structures, and also jumping down to 3580A, condemnation of blighted property, which is something that I've been asking for a derelict building ordinance, and that would probably cover it. So for me, that is the carrot. But I am concerned about the annexation ratio dropping down so low, and also the pro tem. There's lots of bits and pieces to that I haven't seen really ironed out, like how long does that person serve, how many people can serve. I would love to have those questions answered before saying, yeah, I'm all for it. And I think a town hall would be great for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to testify at the public hearing on the Code City? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. I don't see anybody going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Going on to our business items for this evening. Item 7A, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Transpo Group USA Inc. for the 2017 Anderson Hill Clifton Road Roundabout 100% design and procurement procedure documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As approved within the 2017 budget, the City of Port Orchard's Public Works Department is now moving forward with the final 100% design effort for the Anderson Hill Southwest Old Clifton Road Roundabout project. As a reminder, the project is a requirement of the McCormick Urban Village Development Agreement for transportation and is funded by the McCormick Woods Transportation Impact Fees and Bayside Platte Transportation Mitigation Fees. Therefore, on February 21st, 2017, the city's Public Works Department selected 4 qualified firms from the current MRSC professional services roster for the main category: design and planning, streetscape improvements, roadway, bikeway planning, and walkway design, civil engineering, and roundabout planning and design. Staff then scored each statement of qualification and selected the Transpo Group as being the most qualified professional services engineering firm for the project. On February 23, 2013, the city received a fee proposal from the Transpo Group in the amount of $49,400 for the 2017 roundabout 100% final design. Before I read the recommendation, I'll read the fiscal impact. Street Capital Fund number 304, Old Clifton Anderson Hill Road intersection, PSNE $50,000 in the 2017-18 biennial budget. Staff recommends adopting Resolution 007-17, thereby approving Contract 02117 with the Transpo Group USA in the amount not to exceed $49,400 for the 2017 Anderson Hill Road Southwest Old Clifton Road Roundabout 100% final design and documenting professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 007-17, thereby approving contract number C021-17 with the Transpo Group USA, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $49,400 for the 2017 Anderson Hill Road Southwest Old Clifton Road Roundabout 100% final design and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Discussion? Okay, we'll be voting on adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Transpo Group for the 2017 Anderson Hill, Old Clifton Road Roundabout 100% design and procurement procedure documentation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to 7B, approval of change order number 1 to contract number 075-16 with the Law Office of Thomas M. Poors for continued water rights legal services in 2017. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council members, on August 1st, 2016, the city's Public Works Department requested and received statement of qualifications from 3 water right legal firms and received 2 responses by the August 3rd, 2016 deadline. After scoring each of the firm's statement of qualifications, staff selected the law office of Thomas M. Poors, sole proprietor, as being the most qualified personal services firm. On September 8, 2016, the city received a proposal from the law office of Thomas M. Poors for the required 2016 and 2017 activities broken down by year, with 2016 tasks being task 1 through 4 in the amount of $50,000, and the remaining tasks 5 and 6 and contingency funding in the amount of $100,000. Contract 07516 was approved on September 13, 2016, and is valid through December 31, 2017. But Section 4 compensation of the contract only provided for the 2016 proposed amount of $50,000, being task 1 through 4, and did not reflect the proposed 2017 amount of $100,000. Change order number 1 provides the 2017 budget authority for contract 07516. And again, I'll read the fiscal impact. Change order number 1 results in a multi-year contract price not to exceed $150,000. In 2016, contract expenditures only totaled $23,174. Water Sewer Utility Fund 401, water rights, $105,000 is in the 2017-18 biennial budget. The new contract price exceeds biennial budget line authority by $21,825. So staff recommends that the City Council approve change order 1 to contract 07516 with the law office of Thomas M. Poors in the amount of $100,000 for the continued water rights legal services in 2017 as budgeted, but not as reflected in the contract.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to approve change order number 1 to contract number C075-16 with the Law Office of Thomas M. Poors in the amount of $100,000 for the continued water rights legal services, tasks number 5, 6, and contingency funding in 2017 as budgeted, and with the total 2016-2017 activities not to exceed $150,000.
Second. There's a motion and a second. And this was talked about at length at utilities a couple days ago. And to simplify, so some of this work started in 2016, wasn't completed, and it was budgeted. Because the contract wasn't extended, those funds, the whiteboard gets erased, and those funds go back into fund balance, and in this case, it's utility fund balance. So we're approving a new multi-year contract. Part of it is we have to reauthorize what is part of this is reauthorizing what was previously approved, but the contract expired. So this will also, and it doesn't say here, I believe, require a budget amendment also at a future date coming from the water sewer account. So hopefully that better explains what's transpiring here. So questions? You were acting like you had a question, Mr. Clausen?
No.
Nope. Others? All right, so we'll be voting on approving change order number 1 to a contract number 075-16 with the Law Office of Thomas M. Poors for continued water rights legal services in 2017. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, Motion carries. We're on to 7C, approval of change order number 1 to contract number 047-15 with Twist Analytical Laboratories, Inc. for the continued 2017 water quality testing. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you. So on April 14th, 2015, the city entered into contract 04715 with Twist Analytical Laboratories, Spectra Company, being the city's historic water testing lab, and using the bid amount of $18,713 provided to the city during the 2015 RFP process. Under the contract terms, the city reserved the right to offer 2 one-year extensions. When extending the contract for 2017, Twist Laboratories notified the city of their new fee schedule that totaled $19,998.80, a difference of $1,285.80. The city accepted the new fee schedule, but needs to update contract number 04715, and change order number 1 provides the 2017 budget authority for contract 04715 with the subsequent approval of a budget amendment. And again, under the fiscal impact, change order 1 results in an annual fee of $20,000 for water quality testing services. Water Sewer Fund 401 water testing routine, $20,000 for 17 and 18 in the biennial budget. An additional $20,000 is required for water testing services over the biennial period. Simple explanation of that is, as most of you have seen the Public Works budget, there are a lot of line items. We go through diligently in each previous year and look at the expenditures so that we hit the target. And I would say on 999 of 1,000 line items, I didn't make a mistake. On this one, because it was the first biennial budget, I saw $20,000 and put it at $20,000. I put 10 in each year rather than 20 and 20. So that was just my error. So this basically aligns the contract that's already been extended with the funding, and we'll have to put the $20,000 that should have been in there in the first place in there. So my apologies. Staff recommends approval of change order 1 to contract 04715 with Twist Laboratories in an amount not to exceed $19,998 for the water quality testing program.
Councilmember Cacciardi.
I move to approve change order number 1 to contract number C047-15 with Twist Analytical Laboratories, Inc., a Spectra Company, in an amount not to exceed $19,998.80 for the water quality testing program.
Second.
A second by Councilmember Diener. Discussion? Yes.
I just
Councilmember
want
Ashby.
to make sure I understand this correctly. This item that we're going to be voting on and the item we just voted on was to take care of the contract issues on both. And then we will be, I'm assuming the city treasurer will be bringing forth the budget adjustments, but we're now all aware of what those are and why we will be voting on those. Typically, we do that maybe in June or something.
We've instituted in the last 30 days where the treasurer is now writing the fiscal impact statement, so he's very aware of that we need to bring forward a budget amendments. Finance Committee this morning got some truing up stuff that'll be presented at the first public hearing. I'm not sure whether these will get wrapped up in that budget amendment process or at a future budget amendment, but the simple answer is yes, the treasurer is aware of it because he's writing these statements now.
And the action we're taking now is making the contracts correct.
Yes.
Right, and we've done that historically where we've tracked those and
Yes.
made those budget amendments.
So, other questions? Okay, hearing none, be voting on the approval of change order number 1 to contract number 075-15 with Twist Analytical Laboratories, Inc. for continued 2017 water quality testing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are to 7D, approval of the February 14th, 2017 council meeting minutes. Mr. Cacciardi?
Mayor, I move to approve the council meeting minutes from February 14th, 2017.
Motion?
This is the second side, so I'll second it.
So you'll second it, and I believe I'll have one abstention. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Hearing none, and one abstention by Mr. Clausen. Okay. We are to 7E, a discussion item of a community service day. And historically, the Latter-day Saints have done a day of service in our community, and they came to me and talked to me and had a great idea. Why don't we expand this to more of the community, more sites? And because they usually do a park and a school somewhere. And so we've identified 4 sites. The Etta Turner project site, or park site, it really has 2 projects there. We're going to work with Fish and Wildlife, and we're going to do some a beach cleanup there. We have a low tide, I think, at noon. This is going to start at 10, so the tide's already heading out, and we should have plenty of beach to, they want us to pick up small concrete rubble, garbage. City Hall will do some weed pulling, and the city's going to provide some beauty bark. At Clayton Park, we're going to do playground chips, and between now and this project, Public Works is going to install a modern irrigation system there. There's a non-functional one there, I believe, now. We'll spread topsoil and grass seed, potentially, for sure the topsoil. And then at Givens, we'll spread some playground chips under the equipment. So I came up with a corny little tagline at the bottom. Let's all pitch in, beautify our community, pick a project, bring your gloves and the tools you need to get the job done. So I took this to my Rotary Club today, and next month I'm going to take it to the Morning Club and some of the other service clubs, and hope to maybe see some of you guys, out helping out. So I know I'll be there. So questions or Scott?
So one of my retreat items was having the council involved in a cleanup day of some sort, just for us to get our hands dirty. And I think this fits well with that, so I'm excited to see this move forward.
Brandy's concerned because I used the wayfinding logo on the map, but I thought it was. She was. So I'm just owning that I did that.
So,
I'm sure that there would be an additional concern that we should spread ourselves out and not all go to the same project, otherwise we would have a quorum issue.
Yes, that is true. So maybe you let the clerk know where you're headed, so she can track that to make sure that we don't have.
Would it,
Everybody has an opportunity to touch each part that's cleaned up.
There we go.
Wow, that
All
was
4 sites.
My goodness, that was good.
I
Mr.
assume you're
Diener.
going to come along as well.
Absolutely.
I think those of us with trucks, it's mandatory, is that right?
All the soils and all the equipment, all you got to bring is gloves, appropriate footwear, and a shovel or a rake.
A rake.
I mean, and that's really all we're, and then put in a few hours.
What if we find that there are more volunteers than projects? Will we have some additional projects in our hip pocket if
We'll
we need to do that?
just have a wonderful social opportunity with constituents and photo opportunities.
Okay.
Jerry, do you have a comment? I'm sorry, it's on the top of the flyer. It's April 29th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Jerry. So anyway, we're going to do a press release on this tomorrow. Wasn't really all my idea. It was somebody else came with a good idea, and I thought, you know what, we should do this. And Scott had it on his list, and now I've checked one off. So.
Is a Saturday, is that right?
That is a Saturday. Yes. Okay. We are on to the next business item, which is a discussion item of our retreat. I apologize. The accomplishments was actually supposed to be one of the documents for the retreat, so disregard that. It wasn't intended to be discussed this evening, but as you can see, we've accomplished a lot this year. Really, what I wanted to run by you tonight is the next page where it says some, the actual meat potatoes of the item. And what Claire and I have talked about is that you see item number 8 is really going to be kind of a parking lot of your discussion items that you provided me. And as we go through items 1 through 7, we're going to have, an easel and this parking lot to throw other subject matters on it so that, and that's going to be in the second half of the day. At the beginning, it's planned to be a review of last year's retreat and the items on that, the accomplishments that we had in 2016. And then I've got the planning department running through their work plan for 2017. So you guys have and that's an opportunity to check in and make sure we're accomplishing the things that the council wants us to do. From there, Public Works is going to do a similar process, running through, we've got a biennial budget, and we can't do everything in 1 year, monetarily or from a staff perspective. And so they've created a prioritized list and how we're going to accomplish things, and it's just a check-in time with the council. No, I want this is really important to me, and I want it in 2017 and not in 2018, and a discussion there about that. Treasurer wants to talk about the biennial mid-year. We're not quite to mid-year, but biennial review process and where we're at, lessons learned, and some of those budget amendments that'll be coming. Clerk wants to talk about her work plan. And then I've already started what I refer to as the Christmas wish list. So we've got before we know it, the 2019 budget will be upon us. And I've started capturing things like the ADA transition plan and how do we fund that, and other issues like there was the pavement management system and other things that we need to consider as we're developing our next biennial budget. So from there, then we'll go into the items that you guys had provided me and others that come up through the day. So that's kind of what I've envisioned for that. Probably be a whole day. So yes, Fred.
Would you consider starting with items 7 and 8 first?
My challenge is, I think you're going to get more items for 8 out of the other stuff.
Well, the reason I bring it up is last year, which was very enjoyable, it was a structure similar to this, and with council items at the end, I felt that they did not all get discussed. Mm-hmm. It's always great to hear from staff, and I feel that we have heard from them when we had the budget discussions. So I thought it might be interesting if we heard your priorities and the council's priorities. And then as they speak, we could probably add more and have a recap at the end.
I think I'd probably be more comfortable is maybe carving more of the day to this, if that's what the desire of everybody is, and compressing this other stuff earlier, because I think it's important to hear, because I think the items that they present are going to foster discussion items that we're going to add to your guys' discussion. And if we have that afterwards, I think it'll be limited.
I would like the idea of trying to compress those presentations a little bit more so that we have more time to see what comes out of that.
We can do that. Because that's the next step is the time allocation. So maybe we'll work towards getting to 1 through 6 before lunch, and then dive into 7 and 8 in the second half of the day, and devote a half a day to those other items. So, does that seem workable? Okay. All right. Will you remind me of that tomorrow?
So is this considered sort of living and breathing until what point, or are you trying to set this right now?
We can always add, in particular to the items on 8, or bring them that day.
Okay.
It's live. I mean, it's your guys's. It's our meeting.
Yeah, it's a council's retreat, and so we could make amendments as, we may learn something 3 weeks from now that we wanted to add, and most certainly we have the ability to add that, reprioritize things, retime things, and make sure that it's a productive day for all of us there.
What Claire and I talked about was potentially 2 or 3 easels with, because we don't have whiteboards in the room. And these items on, basically, a kind of a dashboard over here that as we're having discussions throughout the day, that we're throwing these ideas so we don't forget about them. And we kind of did that last year, at last year's retreat, that, okay, this is important, but we've got to get through this subject matter and we want to come back to it. And so we're going to park these off over here and then dive into those in detail, and like, as we're talking the second half of the day.
I think that's good, because last year I remember thinking that we didn't get to a lot of those items. And my worry is that if the first 6 took the majority of the day, we would not get to the items that we wanted.
We'll make it so it's not. So I don't think the treasurer needs but 15, 20 minutes, and nor Brandy's.
5-10.
Yeah, so, Public Works has got a tremendous work plan, and so does planning. And I think those are the two that, they're probably gonna need an hour apiece. And then if I give, Brandy and the treasurer, so, yeah, no more than an hour, more like 45 minutes, and we've got a break in there. There's 3 hours, and we shouldn't spend less than an hour on recovering last year's retreat. I think we've covered that. It's more of a refresher. And then you got a sneak preview of the other, which was just the accomplishments. And we know what they are, and that was part of that. Item number 1 was this list. Just to, actually, I put about half that list down, and then I circulated it to the department heads, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we did this and we did that, and we accomplished them. We put it to bed and tend to forget about it. So it's just more of a refresher of, we had a heck of a year last year, and we want to set the table so the next 2 years are just as good. So, Mr. Diener?
Remind me, how did we capture last year's meeting? It wasn't recorded, was it?
No, it was.
It
was Claire's note-taking. She was our scribe.
And then she kicked out something.
She did. She provided that document that then Brandy and I put into a graph that we put timeline to, and then we accomplished everything on that list, or it's in process, except for 3 or 4 items that just weren't funded in the budget. Master planning downtown was a ticket item that was $200,000, and we had to make choices in the budget process. There were 3 or 4 of those that we set as a priority. Then when we went to the budget process, yeah, it's a priority, but we can only afford so many priorities. So we'll come back to that, and so I would envision a similar document that captures what it is. We're going to have these work plans that the staff's going to bring forward. They may be tweaked based on the discussion we have in that room. Then from there, we're going to set priorities. This is, we don't have a budget coming up. So this is more of a planning exercise. I think next year's retreat is going to be more budget-driven and setting the table for the next biennial budget. So this is, I think, more long-range planning than anything. So other questions? So like I said, you can send me, this is fluid. We can add more items to this item 8 or bring them that day and we'll throw them on the board that day. Either way, doesn't matter to me. Okay. On to the next item. So 7G, Councilmember Ashby wanted to have a discussion item of our public hearing this evening. So, the floor is yours.
And I also wanted to discuss some of the things in the Code City. What I'm going to say to start with to members of the audience is that this council, at our work study, and when we've discussed moving to a Code City, we have, I felt, done head nods in favor of not making any changes to our code until, so that the code we're working with right now is the code that will be brought forward. Because many of the provisions, it's going to take a while to vet them. So that's kind of been, there are some provisions in the Code City that automatically come with being a Code City, and the city attorney will make those changes in our code after we pass a resolution. That's kind of my understanding of our head nod. So we heard some comments tonight about allowing the initiative and referendum provision, and our discussion has been that we would look at that after we had, at a later date, that we would look at these individual things. There was mention, or there's an opportunity in a Code City to have a councilman pro tem. And that's not been discussed at all at this council, other than I personally read that and thought it was intriguing. And I think I mentioned it at our last council meeting that I thought it was intriguing. And I would just address the annexation question that was brought up. The typical way that annexations have been done in the city of Port Orchard is by a direct petition, meaning that the area that wants to be annexed has a petition and they petition the city to annex them. The change with a Code City and a second-class city is the election process to annex. And that's when the annexation is actually put on the ballot. And you, under a Code City, you only need 10% of the last, I think it's either general or municipal election. And as a second-class city, it's 20%. That is a method that has never been used in the city of Port Orchard. So I personally don't see it as a major benefit or lack of benefit or restriction to our citizens. It hasn't been used in the past. So it's something that I particularly don't have concern on. When I've been doing my due diligence on the Code City situation, it has become apparent to me that one of the benefits to our citizens and to our city is the ability to enter into development agreements, which we do not have currently. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the development agreement ordinance. And I personally would like to see that before I make a decision on how we move forward with a Code City. So with the agreement with the council, I would like to ask the city attorney to have a draft development ordinance for us at our work study.
Is it doable, Sharon?
I have read a couple different cities' development agreement resolution or ordinance, and I would like to know what that's going to say. And I say that because I would like all of the citizens to know exactly what's going to be in that code when we move it forward. And I personally believe it's important that the development agreement be part of that code when we come forward.
Did you find when you were looking at the other jurisdictions' development agreement code, did you find that they were different between each other?
I only printed Gig Harbors, and what was interesting to me is that basically the development agreements are made when a development needs some variances, and the development agreement provides a superior product to the city than before. So at any rate, that's kind of what I was looking at. I wanted to see what the parameters would be in development agreements.
It might also be useful to bring some examples to the table of development agreements that have occurred and successful developments. Quite often they're phased developments over many years, but they're given the predictability of being vested to the date they apply, or to the date the DA was approved. So it might be useful to bring some of those examples to the table.
I think it's a tool too in master planning. I would think if somebody's gonna take on a large phased product and they want a predicted outcome, the community wants a predicted outcome, and we wanna make sure that we're all on the same page, so when we get to the end, we all have a good understanding of where we're gonna start and where we're gonna finish. So, I mean, the bottom line to the differences is, I mean, and we've talked about this previously, as a second-class city, we're only allowed the things that are statutorily called out, which are limited. As a code city, we're allowed to write anything in our code that doesn't violate state law. And anytime we make those changes to the code, we're gonna go through a public process right here at council. And I think Councilmember Ashby captured it well. What I've heard here this evening is we're not changing our form of governance, which was the objection, when we put it on the ballot, I believe last time, and when we were talking about changing to a city manager. That isn't the issue, and we would have to put it on the ballot if that was the proposal. When we brought this up early on, we currently have a planning commission. I've heard no one say anything any different than that, and if at some point there was gonna be a change to that, there'd need to be a public process to change it on our code. And what I've heard is, just as you mentioned, is we're gonna, unless our code conflicts with the 35A, that we're gonna bring our code forward. Sharon's gonna bring that code, and I think that's a good date for us to be looking at, is March 31st. And I think Councilmember Ashby has a great point there. That is probably one of the bigger provisions that we do need to have sooner versus later, is the development code provisions. So, and then these other, bells and whistles and shiny objects, we'll discuss them, as they're appropriate, as we have time, and as there's a need. Mr. Clausen?
I just, for my own clarification, moving to a code city gives us the ability to do things. Not all do we have to exercise that ability. And the reason I say that is, although I concur with providing a development agreement so that folks can see what it is we're talking about, I'm also a little cautious in that we've got lots of examples that we can look at to craft something that we collectively think is going to fit our city the best. And that process is kind of separate from moving the code city forward. We have to get to code city before we can do that. And I just want to make sure that people agree, or I am understanding it correctly, that although they're both important, they're on separate paths.
Well, what Councilmember Ashby, she's saying that she would like, if that's an important piece of this, to bring it forward with the code, or at least have, maybe it is lagging, but that she would like to see what that code looks like.
I totally 100% agree, but I just don't want to be needing to make a decision on the code ordinance artificially. I'd like to be able to look at all these examples that might be provided, because again, we might want to tweak it a little bit because it would fit better for our city. A little bit of Gig Harbor, a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one. That's all.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, John, because, if this goes to a ballot measure, I mean, we don't want to have 53 different things that are tied to it. I mean, I think the first decision is that, do we want to be a code city or not? And that would be the question asked of the people. Subsequent to that discussion would then for us to be able to look at different types of codes that we may want to implement at a later date. So it may not even be possible to bring them concurrently.
Yeah, and I just don't want the decision of going to a code city or not dependent upon us adopting some kind of developer agreement ordinance or agreeing on a developer agreement ordinance first. I think it's concurrent, or maybe one's lagging the other, but they're not necessarily tied to happen exactly at the same time.
I think we could still bring
I agree,
a
and I think it needs to be.
forward. Sure. Yeah.
But I'm just suggesting that the first one that comes forward may not be the final one that we adopt.
other discussions of this subject matter? Fred?
Well, from what I've heard, and Rob, I think you've done an excellent job of trying to condense this. You know, I like the one-page executive summary. I don't have the points in front of me, but I remember being asked, you know, like in an elevator, what's the difference between a second-class city and a code city, and what's the benefits? And I think Becca's touched on it partly in that I would tell people that it does give more flexibility to your council, which is true. It gives options. And the part that I had difficulty with was, how does this affect your average citizen? What options do they get? The most easily grasped item, of course, is initiative and referendum, which I think we need to make clear is a separate modular option. It's not automatically granted with a code city, but it's a possibility. Now, a lot of them, you know, they're thinking, oh, with code city, you know, we'll automatically get it. And I think we need to be very clear on what they do and don't get. I think the item, though, is my preference is that this would still go to an election. And not so much that I think there is any doubt about the benefits, but it would make us have to educate the public more, because we'd be, you know, making a ballot statement, and we'd have to summarize it and sort of bring up the understanding in the public that we have, or at least we've basically received here.
So one other benefit I could easily point to too. Yes, it gives us more flexibility in our code, but it also creates efficiency for staff and for people dealing with our staff. And efficiency is, so if we're doing something and it's taking longer, it's taking more of our resources and the taxpayer's dollar. So if we can do this in a more efficient manner, which is modernize our code, and I mean, most of the people I talk to, we talk about this, in particular the development community, they're like, what's a second-class city? I've never heard of that, because we're one of 5 remaining. It's just, and I'm the only one on this side of the Cascade Mountains. It's just a bit of an antiquated. Beck, you want to share? Your analogy was actually really good. If you want to share it about your dishwasher.
Well, yeah, I bought a new dishwasher. I didn't need one. Mine was only 26 years old, and it worked. It worked. But I wanted a stainless steel one, so I bought a stainless steel one. And you know what? My old dishwasher worked, but my new dishwasher is quieter. It's more efficient. The dishes are cleaner. There's absolutely no
parts for it.
And I can get parts for it. Yeah, it was just like, wow. You didn't realize what limitations you had before. And the other thing that we want to remember is, as a second-class city, the state controls everything that we do. And if we are a code city, we take back that control locally, and we can then govern ourselves as long as we're doing it within the boundaries of state law. Otherwise, we have to ask the state if we can do certain things.
Well said. Second time I've heard the dishwasher story. I thought it was great.
Well, let me throw out a different one. It's kind of like the difference between having a driver's permit and a driver's license. Code City is a driver's license. We have a lot more flexibility. We can do a lot more things independently of the direction of the state. And you mentioned a few things you might want to let the audience know about. Are there any developments that have not come our way because we don't have the development agreement?
No, and matter of fact, and Jerry Harmon asked me after the work study, but we've done development agreements in the past, and what I didn't realize too is we probably, we don't have that, didn't have that statutory authority, and if we'd have been challenged on it, we probably would have been sideways in a couple different scenarios. And I as a council member, I didn't know that. As the mayor, I've learned a number of things, in particular in interactions with the state auditors and stuff. And it, we didn't have the authority to do some of the things. It wasn't challenged. It worked just fine. But we should have something in our code that says we can do that. So, Mr. Pichardi?
Make a final comment that, you know, it really does provide us, and when I say us, I think the entire community, you know, if we're doing our job as a council, we're representing the people and we're listening to the people. And anytime we go to look at, you know, enacting or ratifying any type of code today, or if we were, you know, to move forward under this, you know, this different code city, some of the items that were brought up today, derelict buildings, is something we've talked. I couldn't agree with you more, Alyssa, on this issue. And I've been frustrated that our hands are tied because there's certain things we can't do, and financially, for us to be able to recoup some of those fees that are enabled under this type of form of government than what we are today, gives us another tool. So I think it empowers the council to listen and to actually go forward and get something done. You know, the idea is brought up to me before about wards and districting of our council to have better representation of our community, and I agree with Mr. Mathis tonight. I think it would actually re-engage our different, you know, aspects of our community as well. So there's an opportunity that if the people are wanting to do this, it gives us the ability to do it. You know, the pro tem council member issue, you know, God forbid if a council member were to become sick with a long-term illness that may last 6, 9, 10 months. We all know people that have had that happen. And so is that something our community would rather have someone sit in as a 6th council member, 7th council member, or are we fine being underrepresented? Again, I think we listen to the people and make those types of decisions. You know, the annexation issue, you know, this is specific to changing a percentage of how it gets to the ballot. It's a vote of the people. It's not a vote of this group of people. And so, you know, as I look at this, the common theme to me is if we're being responsible as a council, it simply gives us more tools to listen and to develop code that I hope becomes a means to the end.
Mr. Diener?
So one of the things I'm a little surprised by is that there hasn't been any press coverage of this issue, or at least I haven't seen any.
There was one article this past week at the Sun, and I'm hopeful that this public hearing is going to
Okay, that's my hope too.
stir some.
That's my hope too. And then,
You know, I typically get, we don't see the press here a whole lot anymore because we put this on the internet, and I usually get phone call a day or two after we've had a council meeting. So I saw this item on the agenda, and I watched the tape, and that's, you know, so there's hope.
and also tonight we heard the idea of a town hall, and I don't know if we've got the time to pull that off, but, you know, is it worth talking about?
We should probably get it on the calendar if we're going to do it. I think definitely we want this for further discussion to look at some of the aspects of the code that Sharon's going to bring back at the March 21st work study.
Well, I think the town hall meeting might be a good indicator of what we're up against, perhaps.
You want to propose a date?
Well,
Do we want to do it as part of our council meeting, prior to the council meeting on the 28th?
I think it's too late.
yeah, I think that's too late. What if we were to do it prior to the work study, the next work study?
On the 21st. On the 21st, just
That'd be the 21st.
have a town hall meeting for an hour before
Yeah.
the work study session?
Yeah?
Yes, the next week. It would be okay there.
So then that leads to a discussion about what we need for that meeting visually for the attendees.
Now, are you talking a town hall or an open house?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking about is probably more described as an open house, but I think other people would call it a town hall meeting. I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure that I'm going to have any time before then to prepare, you know, if we're talking boards or anything of that nature. I mean, I think if we want to sit around it and field questions about it and answer, you know, questions to answer and interact with people and answer questions, I think we could pull that off.
Well,
I think it'd be very beneficial if we could have some sort of that town hall happen before the 28th. You know, in full transparency, what's driving the 28th is should this body, you know, choose to move forward and vote in favor of this, and that perhaps is in disagreement with what our community feels, they would have the opportunity to file a petition. And that's what's driving this, is that time frame of which there's still time to get it on the ballot, right? And so if this body were to choose, you know what, we're just going to take it straight to the body, then March 28th really isn't a deadline for us. And so, you know, again, I'm not making any assumptions of how people, may feel about it, but the more information we have prior to the 28th may help lead us to those conversations.
Mr. Mayor, I would just make the comment, again, Mr. Mathis, when he spoke today, reminded all of us that this Code City was put on the ballot in November 2013, and it was done as a reorganization with the form of government, and that ballot measure was defeated significantly. So it's easy for us, because we support the Code City measure, to assume that that measure was failed because of the reorganization and the council city manager piece. I don't know that I can make that call. I do not know why it was voted down. So I personally would be supportive of putting it on the ballot in November.
So is there do we want to have, so back to Mr. Diener's question. So I've heard a couple of you say ballot. I've heard others not comment yet. Mr. Diener's talking about a town hall, or a meet and greet type setting where before our work study at 6 o'clock. Is that everybody agreeable to that? Do you think that's a good idea on the 21st? Then we'll come here an hour.
I'm certainly willing to invest the time. I'm just concerned that how do we get the notice out in this shorter period of time? And, we did a notice for a public hearing tonight and got a
We
handful
got
of
3 weeks.
Yeah,
Well,
3 weeks. Well,
we
we'll
can
put
contact the media.
We'll put a press release out.
Right.
We send the press releases to the media.
I'm just concerned about being able to have adequate time to get it out. I'm assuming we did press release on the public hearing tonight, but
You did.
I don't think that's justification to not try it again, so I'm certainly willing to invest the time.
And in terms of materials, I think we've had some materials already prepared that if we could
Yeah.
just plot out and make it more.
I had the talking points. Yeah, we can make those available and we can run through those again.
Yeah.
Put them on the projector if we want to, or the TVs.
It'll make us go through all the steps and make sure we have our pencils sharp.
I've got those pamphlets of the Code City handbook. We could make a handful of those and make them available.
Would we be allowed to put something like this in a utility bill? I mean, I know we can't do it for this deadline, but in general, is it considered informational as opposed to a electoral type issue?
I think our website and Facebook, our Facebook page is probably just as effective as, inserting, we can't really insert into the utility bill, and it's inexpensive, and, it's got a long lead time to it. We won't make any of these deadlines that we're talking about,
I agree, and I know it's expensive. It's another way to reach more people than we've reached, for example, than tonight. I think, unfortunately, you have to try to reach people in many, many different ways. Facebook would be one of them, but I think also them being reminded in the utility bill, maybe if it's just a language on the bill. Now, I don't know how many people are getting printed bills anymore.
That's
is
right.
there?
So that's
If
the
it's
other thing,
electronic,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
maybe. But
Is it possible to prepare materials that would direct people to our website?
Sure. It's more, I think we've got it on, I'm not sure exactly what we've got on the website.
Well, the handbook, for
The
example.
handbook is probably the biggest. We put the handbook on the website.
Right. I think we looked at some draft code. I think that would show the extent of the code changes we're looking at this time.
Any press releases we generate,
When we
list
started
the
down that draft
website.
code path, though, we determined that there really isn't any. We're just going to adopt our existing code except for where it conflicts.
Right. So to show that, I
Okay,
think
so-
would offset.
I think we could have that for that, the plan is to have that for that 21st meeting. Correct, Sharon? Okay, so, and a separate body of work, which is some examples of a,
Development
development
agreement.
regulations, or not development regulations, a development agreement code. Were the two important piece, put the handbook on the website, notice the town hall meeting and, continue our discussion on the 21st.
At 6?
And as well as I think I can get together with our website guru in the back and see if we can add I think it's called a widget to our Facebook that says Town Hall, Code City, and we can click on it, and when they click on it, it'll have all the materials that has been shared as part of the council meeting, so they can get all the information in one,
One click, huh?
yes. So
One
we
little
can,
widget.
we can work that out to see if we can get some sort of just a dedicated Code City page.
I like it.
And then we can create a flyer of some sort, and we can get it out as much as we can.
Have it.
We're just limited to contact information.
Because I think we've talked about those items on that, what I call it, the talking points, but, maybe we need that dialogue with the public on those talking points and reiterate some of those things that we talked about, that we're not changing the format of our government, and we're not changing,
Any of the code.
the planning, the planning department and so on and so forth, that we're bringing our code forward as long as it doesn't conflict with state law.
And I think we have the ability to do some sort of survey that we can push out to our,
That'd be
to
awesome.
the list. I think we have a couple hundred people on our list now that sign up for the agenda distribution list, or the new, I can't remember the new program that we implemented. Janine does it. So we can, push it out that way too. We just need to know, what does the council want to ask the public, and what is it, is it a yes or no? Do you want to vote? Do you, what's your comments, concerns? We can draft up
A yes or
something.
no would be great. First, we got to put this information back out in a concise form on the website, and then a yes or no question could be informative.
Okay, well, I'll get together with staff and see if we can get something up by the end of the week.
Okay. Or next week. Okay. On to committee reports. Is that where we're at on the agenda? Yeah. Committee reports. Finance, you met this morning.
Finance, we did. We met this morning, and Mayor already touched on one of the items about a upcoming budget adjustment that we talked about. The treasurer provided us with a breakdown of the various accounts and how the funds will get moved around in and out of the current expense, for example, into the different utility funds and so on, or other project funds, how things are transferred. So that's going to be coming to the full council. So we'll all have an opportunity to look at that and see how that is going to play out for an immediate budget adjustment. We also got, as we do every month, we get a report on the sales tax distribution. So far, we've got 2 months worth of distribution, and so far we're just a bit over 3% greater than what we had estimated for income. So we're kind of right in there. The budget, or the treasurer and some of the IT staff were there and gave us a report on all the effort that's been going into the upgrades of our IT system through the Sitel contract, and essentially that project is complete and done very successfully. We were told about the different modifications that were made to our servers and going from hard boxes to virtual servers, and how our information is essentially in the cloud. So that provides some very rapid restarts of servers and whatever if for some reason our current hardware goes down. So it sounded very good. We also heard about some of the monitoring systems that are now in place, that the staff is able to monitor all of the workstations within City Hall, and they receive notices if there's some kind of a hiccup that's occurring in a particular workstation, so that they could respond before it becomes a complete failure. So I was certainly impressed with the information, not to mention the project finished. I think he said it was a little more than $30,000 under budget, which is always exciting to hear. So good job to the IT staff and the treasurer for that. We also heard some information. We talked briefly about the increase to the city's portion of the utility tax for the gas, natural gas, and the timing of that implementation. Initially, it was thought that it could only be done at January 1, but what staff has discovered that we have a lot more flexibility as to when that can be implemented. So the committee was talking, probably the best time would be in the early summer time frame when gas bills are typically lower, just so people can see it early, I guess. Just basically wanted to see if there was any questions, which the three members of the committee really didn't have any on the bond issues, the information that we learned at the work study from both our bond attorney as well as the financial gentleman that was here that talked about the issuance and how that process would go and coincide with the bid opening and so on. We talked a little bit about updating the procurement procedures for City Hall. Brandy's working on that, and we'll have a proposed changes to that policy before the council soon. And we also talked about some of the policies within that, change order authority, purchasing limits, things of that nature. So we may, as a group, want to revisit some of those because some of the constraints that are in there now make it a bit challenging, especially as we walk forward into a very, very large project called Tremont. And we certainly don't want to delay that project by requiring folks to come back to this body to approve a change order that is somewhat necessary. So we're going to have some more discussion on that. The last thing we talked about was some improvements to the audio system here. It's actually buying some additional wireless mics, so when we sit out for our work studies, it can be captured better and recorded better. They were able to provide us with an estimate of just a bit over $5,000, if I remember correctly, for the addition of 5 more mics to the system. They looked at fewer mics, but a significant portion of that cost is actually, I guess I would refer to as mobilization. It's the staff that needs to come in to our facilities and set up the equipment and tune it and all that sort of stuff. And the incremental cost of going from 3 mics to 5 mics is pretty small. When you have the staff here, it's a matter of tuning 2 more. So I think the committee was comfortable with going forward, and it's within budget. They were able to fix it or cover it with some budget, council budget, and then a couple $100 from somewhere else. I don't remember where, but essentially it's within budget. So a new mic will be coming close to you soon. And the last thing is the next meeting is scheduled for the 30th at 7:30 here at City Hall. I hope, Beck, were you able to check and make sure that worked for you?
It does, thank you.
Perfect, so it's scheduled then.
So we're on to economic development and tourism.
And we have not had a meeting since our last meeting. We'll be meeting again the second Monday of March, 9 o'clock here in council chambers.
Okay, under utilities, and probably your 2 biggest items were on the agenda tonight.
They were. So change order, budget amendment discussions took place tonight. There's going to be a waste management contract amendment, which we're taking to the next work study. So you'll be seeing that in a few weeks. Then there
Actually,
were
it's
some.
on the council meeting, next council meeting.
Oh, council meeting? I'm so sorry. Okay. We also discussed the McCormick Woods Reservoir surplus and an update on that information. Again, there'll be more forthcoming. And an update on well number 9, the retrofit. The construction is going to be beginning relatively soon. That's 2017, 2018. That construction will take place over that period of time. And another update on well 10 and 13. Again, more information forthcoming. Our next meeting is March 20th at 9:30.
Okay. And I see sewer advisory is March 15th. Is there anything to report other than that?
No.
Okay. Land use. I don't believe you've met.
We've not met. The last meeting was canceled, so we're meeting March 23rd at 7:30 a.m. That's a Thursday.
All right. I see that's on the agenda. Lodging tax?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Festival of Chimes and Lights.
Yes, we had a robust meeting this past Monday, and probably one of the most exciting items was a discussion about Bay Street lighting. We are looking to partner with POPSA and perhaps some other organizations here in Port Orchard to use part of our budget for lighting downtown. And we are pursuing getting quotes. This is a very small picture, but
Fourth Street in Bremerton.
right.
Kind of doing that.
So the lighting
that type
going
of lighting.
diagonally across Bay Street, that would stay up year-round. That would be more of a white light. What it does is it provides a nice, safe atmosphere. It's festive. And it would be using several budgets. So the idea of a partnership is that we would be able to get this lighting, and then during holidays, we could actually add some spheres that would show up in different colors. That would be our way of adding, say, Halloween, it was suggested the orange, you know, red, white, and blue for July 4th, that kind of thing. So we're doing our homework. We're getting some quotes. POPSA, Bobby, people were very excited, weren't they? Yes, so it is, I think, a very good way to make use of our budget, and we would still be pursuing the holiday decorations for the side poles. But there's a lot of research that has to be done about where these lights could be hung. And we need to have a construction company involved. So again, we're doing more of the homework, but I think the end result will be something very exciting for Port Orchard. So that was the bulk of the conversation. Then another discussion item was the tree. And we talked about the logistics of providing the large tree every year. And we're working on that again. And of course, Public Works would love to see an artificial tree, but we don't have the budget for that. And a suggestion was made perhaps to plant a tree, and we've talked about that before, if that would work. So we're going to look into that again. But then the Saints also said that they would work with Public Works to provide a tree and a process for handling it without the tree being damaged as it was this year, which was a considerable investment on the Public Works, having to recreate the tree basically, and then the wind took it away and
Franken tree.
Yes. So that is up for discussion again, and that's what, our next meeting will be March 20th also at 3:30, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, to the mayor's report, you got my first item there. So those lights over Bay Street, Kathleen Wilson and Dave Jeffcoat came and talked to me probably a week ago, and I said, I think you're talking about the same lights as Cindy is, so you guys need to meet, and they were. And I think one of the other steps too is our marquee won't support these type of lights without, I thought it would cause us to reinvest in a new marquee or something. So they need to talk to the building owners about attachment points and to attach these lights to the buildings and get permission of the building owners. So that's another step, but I think it's a great idea and it could be a great partnership. Hopefully everybody saw in the paper the sale of the Arbor Terrace Apartments for $38 million. You know, the real estate excise tax is 1.78%. Unfortunately, we only get 0.5% of that. The county and the state get some of that, but we still get $190,000 from that to our fund. So
Only 190?
190, yes. It's tremendous. Our Emergency Operations Center, we've been talking about that for a number of years, whether we do something out of Public Works. It's currently in this building. In the big earthquake, this building's probably standing, but probably not a whole lot around it. So it's probably not the best place for an Emergency Operations Center because the infrastructure around this building is old. So a decision is made that we're going to place our Emergency Operations Center at Station 31 on Tremont. And Fire District's fire station. And they'd like to have us there. We want to be there. And we have a Department of Emergency Management grant for $5,000 that we can use to make some improvements to the space for our needs. So good job to Mr. Dorsey and his staff for meeting with.
We can walk there.
We can walk there, that's right. And so can citizens. If I thought, this idea of the Community Service Day, we do a spring cleanup day, and we're talking maybe about publicizing. I've heard people complaining about trash, so maybe if we can get people maybe to walk your neighborhood and pick up the trash and bag it up, and we'll put, as part of spring cleanup. So I'm noodling on something there. Some Boy Scouts I met with earlier in the week that wanted to do a project where they picked up trash along the sides of the roads, but we have no sidewalks in so many places, and I was concerned about kids walking the fog line and inattentive driver in a bad situation. So I encourage them to participate in the Community Service Day, or if you guys want to adopt a park, I think we'd be supportive of that. Next item, I've got minutes of a meeting from 1998, which Mr. Clausen was the chairman of this meeting. And it was called the City Hall Grand Opening Committee. And I see where Jill Bolts was the administrative secretary to that meeting. She was now at Transit. The reason I'm bringing this up is that a staff member came to me. They had a family member pass away, and they wanted to purchase a brick out front here. And in the past, we've engraved bricks, but it costs $500 to have the company come and set up. And this committee, council committee, set the prices for these bricks a long time ago, and I think we have to sell a lot of bricks to.
Well, there should be a
Make it
minimum
work.
before we.
And I think, currently it's $35 for a brick and $50 for a tile. And my thought is, I just didn't want to arbitrarily do something administrative without talking to you guys about it, but I think we need to maybe up that a little bit and then start tracking if people want it, and when we get to that threshold, I think it ought to be at least a minimum of 50. So then we sell 10, we can at least afford to have the company come. Other thoughts different than that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, when that was established, that was a citizens committee that I chaired. It wasn't a city committee. It was the.
That's good to hear, because you had 4 council members at the meeting.
I know.
Looking at the minutes.
That was before they had those concerns.
Okay.
Now, the council gave us the ability to set the price and sell the tiles as a fundraising source to help fund the grand opening celebration that we held when we opened City Hall. But once that committee was finished, or once we opened City Hall and we bought the chimes and started the Chimes and Lights Festival, then it pretty much it's in the control of the city. So City Council has the authority to establish those prices, or you, however.
Okay.
And I certainly think it's probably, what's it been, 12, 14 years since we moved into this place, it's probably worth increasing the price on those.
Is there some direction you guys want to give me so that we can start?
Now, the bricks were the bricks
are down
on
below.
the Bay Street side, and the tiles
Tiles
were
are
the
up
one on the
here.
Prospect side.
Up on Prospect side, yeah. Do I have an opening bid?
Well, I don't know if it's just about price, to be honest with you. I think it's more about just demand, because we could raise the price to $50, but if only one person wants to buy one, it could be 10 years until.
It's been 3 years since
will.
it's been done, and that's
Right.
what they've done it off a list
So I just
before.
wonder if there wouldn't be some sort of a process where we could have some sort of
Maybe we should promote
promotion
it.
about
maybe-
it, right? Because, I don't think the difference between 35 and 50 is really gonna change all that much. It's a matter of getting the word out and having enough people respond that they have a desire to participate in this, and that, at the end of the day, keeps the price down, where we could mobilize that contractor to come in if we had multiple bricks or.
Okay, so how about if I post it on the we post it on the website that we're, with the application form, we leave the price alone and just see how many bricks we get, or?
Well, it's the revenue that would be derived from the sale of the bricks goes to the contractor to come out here and engrave the bricks, so it's, I mean, there's nothing to be,
Right, I mean,
Have we,
no benefit to the city or to the community.
have we
It's
checked?
other than, it's our community city hall, and if they
Right, no,
want
I
to
appreciate that.
memorialize a family member or
Right.
someone,
But
it's.
you may have 5 people that wanna do it, and they'd say, you know what, I'll pay $100 a brick to get it done in this tranche.
Okay.
Or one year you may have 20 people, and they only have to pay
How many,
$25.
3 years ago?
Okay,
Well, what I was gonna suggest is that we
We finally met
establish,
the threshold at,
Right.
to the $500.
The five, but my question is, how many bricks does the $500 give us?
Nothing. We got nothing from it. Well, all we did was met the.
No, no, no. The company will provide how many bricks for
Provide
500?
any bricks. The bricks are out there.
how many engravings?
How many will they engrave?
Well, it's a math equation. So if we were at 50, some of these are at 50 and some are at 35. So.
Okay, so do they charge us a certain amount per engraving, per letter?
No, it's $500.
It's $500 to
They'll engrave
come
them
out,
all one time for $500.
$500.
regardless of how many we have.
What I'm
Okay.
hearing. What I was going to suggest, that if we were to increase the price and designate the revenue beyond, the engraving to a specific, we're going to improve the landscaping around City Hall or whatever, at least people know that their money is going to something more than just engraving. And maybe they'd be more likely to buy a brick. I mean, that was the intent when we did it initially, is the revenue from the sale went to fund, a specific project, the grand opening, so.
Maybe
Christmas lights on Bay Street.
Maybe this needs to
New
come.
chimes.
I thought this was easy. Maybe this is gonna come back to the work study on the 21st.
Yeah.
That's probably why this went through a community group, though, is because this excess funds couldn't come in, so it probably went through a community group where they could make the decision, they could write the check and pay for the.
It was actually the
Right, so-
closing comments in this committee. So the committee decided the P.O. box would not be appropriate for the brick sales, and the Chamber of Commerce was a more convenient contact point. And Jill Bowles will collect the order forms from the Chamber of Commerce and maintain a list for the sales. So it was done to the Chamber of Commerce last time.
Well, they help distribute and sell the bricks and tiles, so,
Right, I would just suggest that when we put it out there, we say that we're going to have the bricks engraved in July or August or
And-
whatever.
and it has to be the
there's-
summer
And
months.
there's a time frame. If you want a brick this year, this is what you need to do.
And I don't think we should say, because it took us 3 years. It's been 3 years since we've done it. And I just got my first request, and it's been every 3 to 5 years is roughly, is how often it happens.
Every now and again, when somebody mentions that they want to buy a brick or a tile, then we actively advertise that, hey, we're going to do it that year. The last couple years, we haven't had anybody come forward, so it's just slid off our radar. We just, had other things to do. But absolutely, if somebody wants to do it, we try and advertise it to get that minimum. I think there's only 1 year that we received more funds than the cost, and I think it just went into the general fund. I can check with the treasurer on that, but typically every year that we've done it, it's right at the amount. We're scrounging up for one more person, so.
so,
It sounds like to me, the price, do we want to raise the price or not?
well, Sean raises
Sean-
a good
You know,
point.
he talked in circles about the issue.
No, I did not. I don't know that it matters. But
I-
also,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
You could also just.
call the, what if we get more information from this contractor? Because it doesn't make sense that it's unlimited graving. If we had them come out for 10,000 bricks, it's not gonna be the same as if you engrave 4
You're right,
bricks.
but we don't have 10,000, we got a limited supply.
Right, but my point is, if it is $500 and he would be able to engrave up to 50 bricks, we could put that information out, right? And it's call for all, and then if you had 50 people turn out, and we're not trying to make money on it, then it'd be $10 a brick during that go-around. If we only had 10 people sign up, then we'd say, you know what, it's gonna cost 50, you still wanna do it.
I think we should at least stick with the prices that we've got. We've got there's an application,
So the price is 30
$35 for a tile,
A brick. And the tile is 50.
brick and
5 brick and
50.
50 a tile.
$50 for a tile. The tiles are bigger.
And how many do you have requesting a tile?
One. We had a staff member who had a family member pass away, and they wanted to memorialize him. And she
So
came
we
to
have
me.
one ready to go.
We have one, and actually she stirred, because I said, you know what, I've been meaning to do that too, and
I'll put me down for 4 of them. I'll buy 4 of them.
so.
It's about promoting it.
Yeah, I just promoted it here tonight.
Not a price problem.
Yeah.
So let's, okay, so maybe we stick with this current price. It sounds like we can get 10, and we'll put it on the website tomorrow, and we'll
It's on
see,
the
and see.
prospect site. I have 2 tiles.
I have a brick
Yeah,
probably
and
by
make
that,
sure,
I don't
make
think I
sure,
knew there
okay.
were two different
All right, my last item, I promise. That was supposed to be easy. All right, so just the homeless, and I'm gonna refer to, I've got it, and I've had a couple people reach out to me, and I'm gonna refer to them probably as curmudgeoners, and that are about this homelessness thing, that making sure that they don't agree that we're providing shelter to the homeless folks, and they wanted to ensure that we weren't paying, their tax dollars weren't being used. So I, for this, and I assured them this is, the churches have come together. I've just facilitated, some of you folks have been to these meetings, and I'm really just acting as a facilitator, and some wonderful work's being done. But this is, I had something heartwarming happen to me today. So, and it was why I'm doing this. And I had the privilege of being a reader at one of the grade schools today, reading Dr. Seuss Day today, and I had got to read The Butter Wars, and that's not really the title of it, but that's really what it is, and it's a cliffhanger, I'm telling you. So, and recommended reading. And we get to the question and answers portion, and some of the questions from these kids are a little goofy, and I had one little girl, ask me, she says, "What are we doing about homelessness?" Wow, and so I talked a little bit about, and the little girl next to her raises her hand and says, Mommy and I, when Mommy and Daddy were fighting one time, Mommy and I had to go live in the car for a while. And that's what this is about, because no little girl and her mom should be out sleeping in a car at the Walmart parking lot. So, that was, that's what this is about for me. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story. So we're doing a lot of good things. And with that, staff, what do you have for me, Mr. Dorsey? Yeah, you're just pedaling as fast as you can over there, I know.
Bread and water.
Okay, Sharon,
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
we gave you some work to do, though. All right. Brandy?
So I just have a clarifying question. I'm working on the trademark application and use. And as it is currently drafted, it's, I believe it's in the mayor's favor, I should say. But it's staff's understanding that the wayfinding logo is for tourists. It's for wayfinding for the community to know where the library is, and the outside people to come in and know where tourist activities are. And that the logo of the City Hall stays on, which is the official logo of City Hall, it stays on the newspaper,
It's on our
stays on the letterhead.
It's on our website, yeah.
So departments are very intrigued with the fascinating logo of the wayfinding. And so every now and again it pops up on a document, and I'm like, nope, council doesn't want it on a document. You got to put our City Hall logo on it. And so I guess for my clarification, is the intent of the wayfinding logo for tourism only, or is it where we think it's pretty? I just need clarification, and then that will also help legal counsel and I finalize the use in the application and the policies of the wayfinding logo.
So my interpretation, which I've been bending the rules, I'm the worst offender, I'll admit it, is that's what we're using on letterhead and official documents. That's City Hall. But when it and some of the graphic documents, as you saw tonight, I thought, I had the City Hall logo over there next to City Hall, but on the other hand, I thought the Port Orchard would look pretty cool on the middle of that map. So there's Brandy's got you an example. So,
I would say, a document that I have seen, documents that I have seen through KRCC will have logos of the different municipalities. And when our city hall is up there, you don't know where it is. I mean, if you don't come into Port Orchard, it doesn't identify us. I would rather see Port Orchard written out on some of those types of documents.
so,
You know-
so you're saying flexibility is better?
Yeah.
I would support that, and my understanding is when we had it, it wasn't so much that we didn't want it used on stationery, we just didn't want to reprint all the stationery that we already had with the old logo. So as that is used up, I would be open to using.
Stationaries actually doesn't exist anymore. It's all digital
Okay,
documents, and we print it on the document as we use it. I don't think there's a stock supply.
Well, that was one of the arguments.
Envelopes, I
heard.
think, for utility billing is, I think, the only pre-printed maybe.
I mean, I think
I guess-
walking a slippery slope of, I think, anytime any company comes up with a logo, there's very specific branding guidelines on how you use that logo and what colors. And so, I think that would be the next step is, it's not so much if we use this one or that one, but just defining for anybody's use that when we use it appropriately, and that we don't have different marks and different colors and that we're adding confusion. I mean, that's the whole point of a brand is to grow that brand and to create recognition behind it. And so, I think we're kind of walking into two different conversations here. And if we wanted to introduce a logo like that onto everything else, it's just a different conversation. And then that becomes the brand, and there's guidelines on how to use it, and everyone follows the guidelines.
Right, I guess my specific recollection of the process was that the council was very specific on they did not want.
That was a different council.
Right, I'm just saying as a recollection to kind of build on what Sean's saying is that there was a distinct process and a separation between the city logo that was going to stay the city logo and the branding that was associated with the wayfinding, that they were two clearly separate issues. So again, you have obviously the legislative power to change that. I'm just reminding you of when they were developed, because I was on that steering committee, there's our
And I was on the council at the time.
right,
so.
in our,
Mr.
so we
Clausen.
had that.
Well, if I remember correctly, the official, the one that the council actually adopted, is over there on that frame thing that we had when we opened City Hall, and that is not this picture of City Hall. This picture of City Hall was Mayor Capola wanted something that he could put on this flag so he could carry it through an AWC conference. That isn't technically the logo that the city council had adopted.
I don't believe I've seen the other one.
It's
on the
City Hall with the sign of Port Orchard in front of City Hall. Our keychains
Yeah.
that we have, that is in essence the official logo that was approved by the council. And certainly I could have missed a meeting where that was changed, but that's the last one I remember being
So it's
officially.
morphed on its own.
This was something that was developed by Mayor.
Right, we've got,
no
Brandy could
guidelines.
easily pull up the logo that was on all the documents
I
here
have
before
both.
Larry did that.
It's black and white.
So if
I
the
think
council wants to switch back, we can.
Certainly, the council can adopt whatever you want, but the one, essentially, this is the one that was officially adopted, where it has Port Orchard in front of City Hall, so that people could see that it says Port Orchard.
I think
Well,
that was
we have,
This isn't reproduced.
we have two different marks. So we have this, we've spent good money on this. There's applications where I think it's very appropriate to use that. And But I personally prefer this on a piece of letterhead when we send it out, because your letter tells you who it's from and where you're from.
Well, I think Beck raises a very good point. I mean, it's a beautiful picture of City Hall, but if you don't know where the City Hall is, it tells you nothing. That's why I think the official logo that has Port Orchard on the front of it, it's City Hall and.
When it's put on a KRC, you know, a document with a whole bunch of other people, though, that gets pretty doggone small, and the word Port Orchard's gonna be something you're gonna need your magnifying glass for.
Well, at least it says Port Orchard. This one doesn't.
Well, I realize that. And when it gets on that KRCC document and other documents, it's even smaller than this mark.
Should we hire a consultant?
Yeah.
I'm done with this
Maybe that's
discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a work study issue.
Okay. We're almost to citizen comments. Yes.
There's the logo, by the way.
Okay, I think we're there. So,
Yeah.
Mary, go ahead. We're at citizen comments. Come on up. Oh, come on up to the microphone. We know who you are, but.
Mary Feltz, 1050 Hill Avenue. I just came late tonight because I wanted to hear what President Trump had to say. And I would recommend that you all take time to listen to what he had to say. It was very informative, I thought. It made me feel proud to be an American. It really did, and it was wonderful. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Jerry, go ahead.
Same thing that I talked about meeting. To me, it's hiding our press releases in the classified ads. If you want people to come, you've got to put something out there where they can see it. And to me, it's very frustrating because it's almost like it's being hidden there so that nobody knows, but you can justify the fact that you did put out a press release. And so something needs to be figured out for getting it closer to the front page where somebody actually knows what's happening down here. Then another thing that I've brought up many times is you had a paper up there that was not out here about your retreat. Now, when it's put up there, it's absolutely unable to be read from the people in the audience. I couldn't read a thing up there. Now, maybe my eyes are getting worse, but it's still the idea. You spent lots of money on that. You've got the city of Port Orchard right there, nice and big, where I can read that sitting over there. When you type these up, it takes maybe 20 seconds to highlight this whole thing, hit a larger font size, and have a printable copy that when it's put on that thing, people could read the information from the seats. This was a total waste of money to put this up there, and nobody can read it. It's absolutely unreadable. So we could have done without spending all this money on these screens. And then I had one other thing. I guess I wasn't around when it was talking about electronic signs. But to me, one of the best things, and people are using them all over, but I don't understand our town, that if you on signage, if you had you have thousands of people drive by this city hall every day. And if you had an electronic sign that talked about issues that are coming up and had good standards for the whole town, I just don't understand it. I mean, the state has them out on the highway where we can be told, if there's problems. So to start thinking about, if you really want people to know about what's happening, I mean, I've gone to the webpage maybe a couple of times, but 13,000 people in this community, and we get 2 and 3 people here because they don't know and they're not getting involved. I realize that, but it's just the idea that if you really want people coming and giving input, you've got to find a way to get the information out there. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Either one of you? Okay. Mr. Wendelson.
Nick Whittleton. And I'd gladly buy a brick or a square or something else if the money was going to Chimes and Lights. And it sounds like that's where it originally went after the shindig to open the place, so that'd be a good fundraising opportunity for the city to help improve Chimes and Lights a bit. Code City discussion. The initiative and referendum is important. Right now, you're asking the citizens to go along with your wish to change over to a code city, and you're only going to roll over the code and a couple items that you really want. You're asking us to sign a blank check. We really need to know what the plan is, what the meaning behind the plan is. Because right now, you guys wouldn't support it yourselves if you were sitting on this side of the bench. Because there's no definition. Yep, we're going to change to a code city, and we're not going to change the code. So why change? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead, Ms. Biddle.
I guess I should have said my name before. Alyssa Whittleton. I'm making up for lost time. Thank you for the opportunity to have a town hall. I think that is awesome. Really appreciate it, and I will share the information with as many people as I can know, as I can. My question was regarding something that I've heard over the last couple of years, and when I've been reviewing the tapes and stuff, I haven't seen it addressed, and maybe it has been, but I'm just curious regarding the leaking windows. A couple years ago, it was factored into the budget, but then there was some talk about going back after the installers or the suppliers, and I'm just wondering, has any mediation happened towards sealing the windows, or is our building suffering damage in the meantime? And so maybe that's already been taken care of, but in the back of my head, when I'm hearing about what's
Last work
going on.
study session.
Oh, pardon me?
Last work study session.
Right, that too.
No, it was on the last work study session. The
And I was here, but I didn't hear if the windows have actually been sealed in the meantime to get us through.
Nothing we can do with the windows. unfortunately.
Really? Oh, okay.
The seals have failed on them.
Oh, the seals have failed. See, the way I interpreted it was leakage around the windows.
There's some of that too.
So can that part be fixed, or is that part been fixed?
Siding issues too.
I know. I'm just thinking, it's not rotting, is it? Is the building rotting? Is there something we can do in the meantime? I just remember that we had put dollars aside to
No-
try to patch
nowhere-
it up.
Nowhere near adequate what was put in the budget.
And
to-
maybe duct tape.
That's,
And so, okey doke. That was my question. And it seems like there was something else, and now it's flown, but I'll save it for next time. Thank you.
thank you. Bobby, you're the only one left. You gotta come up to the microphone. If you're excited about the lights, you gotta come up to the microphone and tell us about it.
I know it's gone so long. Bobby Stewart. I'm very excited about the lights and just mainly just as a team. I think this is going to be really good, and I think that just working together, and I'm totally for it. And if I have money, or if I win the lotto, or whatever, it'll all go to that. And the tile is a wonderful idea, and you can sign me up for whatever you need left over. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Meeting's adjourned.
Mondays have been really